Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Recently I was in Georgia. Please don't take photos now. In Europe. There are two Georgias. There's one's in America and one's in Europe. I was there for a Shravan Kirtan camp, which went over Janmashtami, and in preparation for Janmashtami, I was reading from Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion about the divine qualities of Lord Sri Krishna. Have you all read the Nectar of Devotion? Who read the Nectar of Devotion? Please raise your hands. No? Some? Let's see. Very important book. It's Srila Prabhupada included that among the 4 books which he stated to be prime for all his disciples, which are Bhagavad-gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, Caitanya-caritamrta, and Nectar of Devotion. We put a lot of stress on, especially on Gita and Bhagavatam. Not so much on Caitanya-caritamrta. We should do, but really you have to go through Bhagavatam first, and then Caitanya-caritamrta. And getting through Bhagavatam itself is quite a job. I mean, it's many volumes. This month it's being emphasized the distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam sets. We should also try to encourage people to read them. But also this Nectar of Devotion is a very important book. So please go through it time to time. Not that other books of Srila Prabhupada are not important. The Sri Upanishad, Krishna book, so many, everything Srila Prabhupada gave us is so important. But he especially emphasized these 4, among which I see that Nectar of Devotion is almost semi-forgotten. So it's also important. It introduces us to the nature of pure devotional service, and in summary, who is Krishna? It's an important question. Who is Krishna? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Personality. This point Srila Prabhupada emphasized again and again and again. We often hear that the Supreme is nirgun, no qualities. But we learn from Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srila Rupa Goswami has summarized this in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada rendered as the Nectar of Devotion, that rather Krishna is full of unlimited transcendental qualities. That's what it means by him being a person. If he's a person but he doesn't have qualities, then it's meaningless. The problem is that in this world we see qualities, and the qualities of this world, however good you may be. In recent times they've been advertising Mother Teresa as the greatest saint, and prior to that Swami Vivekananda. They're both meat eaters, by the way. So they weren't that nice to the animals. But mostly we see qualities means bad qualities. And even if people have good qualities, it's hard to find someone without some bad qualities. In Gita, Krishna mentions 3 prominent bad qualities as 3 gates to hell. Kam, Krodh and Lobh. 3 gates to hell. Who is there among us who is free from lust, anger, and greed, and what to mention, envy, and so many bad qualities. So the impersonalists, they say we should be devoid of qualities, and the Supreme must be devoid of qualities, because how can he have good qualities? Because qualities means bad qualities also, and qualities means we interact with others. It's signs of personality, and they're very afraid of personality. They had some bad experiences. We all had bad experiences, but rather Krishna has all good qualities and no bad qualities. He also has calm, krodha and lobh. You may be surprised to hear that. But his lust, anger and greed is devoid of any badness. It's all good. Krishna has desire. What is his desire? His desire is to please his devotees. He has anger that we find in Bhagavad-gita. Krishna says, Tanahang drishatakruran sangsaration radhavang shik pramya jasamashubham. What's the last line? Anyone? I forgot it. Asurishveshu yonishu. Thank you. Thank you. Who said that? Okay, good. Krishna says the demoniac who are very envious of others, I throw them into lower species, birth after birth. So Krishna's getting angry. He becomes angry when people are very badly behaved. But that is also a good quality of his, because we read in the qualities of Sri Krishna which are given in the nectar of devotion, one is that Krishna gives liberation to the demons who he kills. So if God's angry at you, that's for your own benefit. Everything he does is for the benefit of everyone. But it's hard for non-devotees to understand this, because they're envious of him. So anyway, in the lead up to this Janmashtami and on Janmashtami, I was going through the qualities of Krishna given in the nectar of devotion. Of course, Krishna has unlimited qualities, but 64 are mentioned as prominent, among which 50 qualities can be manifest in jivas or Lord Shiva. They can be manifest in others to some extent. Just like Krishna has auspicious bodily features. And humans may have that. Demigods have, generally speaking. Krishna is very compassionate, and we may see that in humans also. But there are some qualities which are not seen in ordinary jivas, but which are sometimes seen to some extent in Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva. And these are listed by Srila Rupa Goswami as changeless. One is changeless. That means Lord Brahma, from the time he's born to the time he dies, is changeless. Sometimes we see pictures of Lord Brahma with a long beard. Maybe they got that idea from the Christian idea of God. Long grey beard, because he's the grandfather. But Srila Prabhupada, he commissioned paintings of Lord Brahma in which he looks young and fresh, not old and worn out. And he remains like that, changeless. But that's not the changelessness of Krishna, because Krishna is Satchidananda Vigraha, which is one of the qualities which also Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva may have to a limited extent, but Krishna is always the same. all cognizant. And that, again, that's true. Krishna knows everything, but Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva may know everything within this universe. Ever fresh and possessing all mystic perfections. Then there are another 5 qualities which are manifested in the body of Narayana, who also has these qualities. Inconceivable potency, achintya shakti. That is the hallmark of Bhagavan. No one else can have that. This inconceivable potency. And then the next quality is a manifestation of that inconceivable potency, that uncountable universes generate from his body. You can't do that. I can't do that. Lord Brahma can't do that. Lord Shiva can't do that. Narayan does it. And Narayana is the original source of all avatars. That means we have the 4-handed Vishnu form in Vaikuntha. And then we have Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasingha, Vamana, Parashuram, Lord Ram, the son of Dasharath, Balaram, and Krishna, and Buddhadev, and Kalki, and they all come from the Narayan form. Is that right? But doesn't Krishna, he's the origin of the Narayan form. But it can also be said that Narayan is the origin of Krishna, because Krishna comes, he manifests himself in this world as if coming from Narayana. So some different Vaishnav Sampradayas, they want to say that Narayana is the origin. All right, that's true. We can accept also. But if we go back to the very origin, although there's no origin, and this is all inconceivable, it is Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the origin even of Narayana. He is the giver of salvation to enemies who he kills. So if you want salvation, one way is to get killed by Krishna. But you have to be a real big demon to get that kind of mercy. It's not recommended. You're more likely to end up in hell. It's hard to be a really big demon in Kali Yuga. I mean, many people are trying hard, but to be like Hiranyakashipu, and it's practically not possible because people don't have that kind of power. I was just in Georgia, and the biggest demon of the 20th century. Generally people think Hitler, but actually Stalin in many ways was much worse. He killed his own people, more than Hitler did of the Jews and everyone else. Anyway, if we have a competition, who's the biggest demon, Stalin's definitely up there. That's the greatest personality in history who came out of Georgia. It's the only claim to fame. But he's not up there with, nowhere near Hiranyakashipu. Or Ravana. Or Ravana Rakshasa. He eats people like Stalin for breakfast. Man-eater. And he is the attractor of liberated souls. So these are qualities of Narayana. And all of these qualities are manifested in Krishna. But Krishna has 4 extra qualities which are not seen even in Narayana. And this is why, or one major reason why we can say that Krishna is the topmost form of all the many manifestations of the personality of Godhead, and that although Krishna and the Narayan forms are equal ontologically, that means in their essence, still Krishna is in one sense even more than Narayana. He has 4 extra qualities. Now, how can that be? Because Narayan is complete Godhead. Universes emanate from him, avatars come from him, he has inconceivable potency. He, not even Shiva, gives mukti to the persons, the enemies who he kills. He attracts liberated souls. So in terms of being supreme in power and majesty, Narayan's the top. But there are 4 extra qualities of Krishna which are not even seen in Narayana. And they are Leela madhuri, number 1. He performs wonderful activities. Now we say, well, Narayan does too. He comes as Matsya, and these little tiny fish becomes a little bigger, and within one day he becomes so big that he can only go in the ocean, and even the regular ocean is hardly big enough. Varahadev also came very small. Who's the father and mother of Varahadev? Amma. Brahma. But who's his Amma? He is a very strange pastime. When you sneeze, when you sneeze, did a pig ever come out of your nose? I don't. It's not even described that Brahma sneezed. It just kind of. What's that? He went up in the sky. So these are all wonderful activities of the various avatars, but Krishna's activities are even more wonderful. And he says it himself. Here, Rupa Goswami quotes from Brihad Vamana Purana, in which Krishna says, I have many fascinating pastimes, but whenever I think of the Rasa Leela with the gopis, I want to have it again. He himself likes the Rasa Leela more than any of his pastimes. And Rupa Goswami quotes a devotee as saying, I know about Narayana, Shripati, husband of the goddess of fortune. I know about so many avatars of the Lord, and they're all attractive and exciting to the mind, but the Ras Leela, that is very special. That, more than anything, increases the transcendental pleasure of the devotee. Is fortunate enough to be able to think of that and relish that. And there may not be that many, because, I'll tell you why I say that, because I give many talks on various topics in relation to Krishna and Krishna consciousness. But when I talk about the qualities of Krishna, we don't find so much interest. People are not so much in terms of YouTube hits. These kind of talks, not so much. I did a whole series of talks on Sri Vishnu Sahasranam. Some people were very interested, but mostly not so interested. If we talk about political matters, social matters, ISKCON controversies, more interest. It's all related to Krishna and Krishna consciousness, but if we speak about the qualities of Krishna, not so much interested in it. You are interested because you're devotees. But people in general, we can't relate to it. They're not interested to hear. If you tell them about the pastimes of Donald Trump, that's very interesting to them. Or some cricketer or Bollywood star. That's very interesting. But the pastimes of Krishna are not so popular. Another, which is, actually these terms, Leela madhuri, prema madhuri, rupa madhuri, Venu madhuri, we don't find them in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or Caitanya-caritamrta. But they're often ascribed to these 4 extra qualities of Krishna. One is called prema madhuri, and that is Krishna is surrounded by loving devotees, and of course Lord Narayana is also. I was just talking about the importance of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the nectar of devotion. And there's so many important shastras and books and poems written by devotees. I have a habit whenever I come to Kuwait, I go through at least the verses of Mukunda Mala Stotra. That's a habit of mine. It's so much overflowing, the appreciation of Kulashekar Alva, his appreciation for Krishna. Yeah, Narayana, he often mentions Krishna directly, and his devotees. He aspires to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the devotees, the holy name of the Lord. It's thick with devotion, very concentrated devotion. So it's not that the devotees of Lord Narayana are somehow somewhat lacking in love for him, but his devotee, Krishna's devotees, they are of a quality of love which is inconceivable. Srila Prabhupada comments in describing this quality that when we say Krishna, Krishna is not alone. This is a very important understanding, because in Islam we don't have that at all, do we? That God and his friends. He's not a person, so he can't have any friends. Must be lonely, but anyway, you can't really send. And in Christianity, there's mighty God sitting on a throne, and he has Jesus at his right hand side, and he has a bunch of angels glorifying him. I'm not sure if that's even in the Bible, but they don't really know much about him at all. But the idea that God has many friends and associates who are all glorious, that is not found in these Abrahamic religions. There's not really much idea about God at all, actually what he is at all. But Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna means his name, qualities, fame, friends, paraphernalia, entourage, and he gives the example of a king. There's one, Lokik Nyay, Raja Ayamiti Nyay. The king has come. So when we say the king has come, it means he doesn't come alone. There's a whole big entourage. If the king is coming in the city, there'll be soldiers and brass band, maybe not a brass band, but there'll be a band playing, and even now, if I guess in Kuwait, if the ruler is coming, the roads will be blocked off, and there'll be a whole convoy of cars, not just alone. So in the same way, Krishna is not impersonal. In Vrindavan especially, he has his very dearest friends, the gopis, the cowherd boys, mother and father, and in this regard, Rupa Goswami quotes from the Gopi-gita. No, this is the... is that the right reference? Anyway, I'll read the translation that Srila Prabhupada gives here. The gopis are lamenting, "Our dear Krishna, during the daytime when you go out into the forests with the cows, we consider one moment to be 12 years, and it is very difficult for us to pass the time. And again, when you come back at the end of the day, by seeing your beautiful face, we are so much attracted that we are unable to stop looking upon you constantly. At these times, when there is an occasional blinking of our eyelids," do you notice when you blink? No one notices, but they notice. Because at that time, for that blinking, they can't see Krishna, and they condemn Lord Brahma. What a useless creator you are. You made eyes that blink. So when we're looking at Krishna for a second, less than a second, we can't see Krishna. So this is an example of how great love the devotees of Krishna have for him, that when they saw him, they were disturbed even by not seeing him for just a blinking of an eyelid. Then another gopi said to Krishna that meeting you at night, we find the night to be very short. That's described when Krishna performed his Rasa Leela. The night became the length of a night of Lord Brahma. But the gopis felt it to be just like a second. And during the day when Krishna was out in the forest and they couldn't see him, a moment seemed to be like 12 years or more. We have some experience of that. When we're enjoying ourselves, when time seems to go quick, quick, quick. And when we're suffering, it seems to drag on. So it's very much like that for the gopis. And this is an indication of how much they are deeply in love with Krishna. Then we have Venu madhuri, Krishna's attractive flute. And if we think of a quality of God the Supreme, what would that be? If you think God is all-powerful, knows everything, rewards the pious, punishes the sinful, sits on a throne with all jewels, you'd never think of him playing a flute. And if you think of him playing a flute, it should be a silver flute, right? You're going to have silver flutes. But it's just a bamboo flute, which you see even now. You'll find, at least in West Bengal, people go around with a bunch of flutes and sell them. And they make them and then they sell them. And it's just on the street, and it doesn't cost much. It's nothing valuable. But one distinctive characteristic of Krishna is his flute and his flute playing. What is the sound of that flute? We've all heard flute playing. There are different styles. It can be very pleasant. Flute played properly. But what is the sound of Krishna's flute? We're waiting to hear that. What is the special sound? It's not that only Krishna plays a flute. Other cowherd boys may do also. It's a common thing for them to play a flute to call that calls the cows. That also calls the gopis. What is the sound of that flute? That's it's so special. It's described by Rupa Goswami himself that Lord Shiva, he plays his drum, but when he hears Krishna's flute, He just stops. And great sages like the 4 Kumaras, they're sitting in meditation. They hear Krishna's flute, and they're very peacefully, deeply absorbed in meditation. But when they hear Krishna's flute, all their meditation is gone. Lord Brahma, sitting on his lotus flower, seeing the whole universe. Lord Brahma, very grave, he sees everything going, but he becomes astonished. And Anantadev, he's holding the planets on his hood's snake, swaying this way and that way. When he hears Krishna's flute, he also becomes astonished as it penetrates through the covering of Krishna's flute playing. The sound penetrates through the whole universe and goes up to the spiritual sky. Something amazing. And most amazing thing of all is that by the flute he calls the gopis. They can understand this is Krishna calling us. So we're waiting to hear that. If at the end of all our sadhana and service we can hear Krishna's flute and appreciate it, that will be the perfection of our existence. Then Krishna's beauty. Now, of course, it's not that the beauty of Narayana is something mundane. It's extraordinary, and we find again and again in the Bhagavatam there are descriptions of the form of Narayana for the yogis to meditate on. It's certainly most attractive. And we have in Bhagavatam and different Puranas and the prayers of different devotees in the Divya Prabandham, again and again there are descriptions of the beautiful form of Narayana. But there's something about Krishna's form that attracts even Krishna himself to see his own beauty. There's a description again in this Rupa Goswami's Lalita Madhava, another play, that Krishna seeing in Dwaraka, seeing his own form in a reflection, became so enchanted, he thought that, oh, such a beautiful form, but I can't appreciate it properly. Only Radha can properly appreciate this form. And then on the basis of that, he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this means that even Krishna in Dwaraka is astonished by the beauty of Vrindavan. Everyone in Vrindavan is astonished by Krishna's beauty. And one feature of the beautiful form of Krishna is that he wears a peacock feather in his head. Now, if you're in the forest in North India, even now there's so many peacocks here and there. In much of India you'll find peacocks. It's an ordinary thing, but that is something very special, very pleasing. The devotees, they take great pleasure. That's always mentioned in the description of Krishna's form. Baha Pirang Natavaravapu, etc. The description of Krishna, how the gopis remember him, seeing the peacock feather in his which he uses as a decoration. How fortunate is the peacock that he becomes servant of Krishna by that beautiful tail of his, becomes a decoration. And that we don't find in Narayana. So these are special features of Krishna, which you could say, well, an ordinary person can play a flute also. An ordinary person has associates and friends, and anyone can pick up a peacock feather and put it in their head. And yeah, there are many people who are very beautiful, nice to see. So what's so special about Krishna? Yeah, and everyone, well, not everyone, but some people do some wonderful activities. That's wonderful activities, that's Leela madhuri. So there are acrobats. They do wonderful things, which we can't do. There are magicians like Houdini. We still don't know how he did his acts that tie him up, put him in a box, lock it up, and drop it in the water just before the Niagara Falls. So it looks like he's sure to die. But he gets out. How does he do it? Could be some yogic, mystic power. Yogis, they can also perform wonderful activities. Srila Prabhupada sometimes told about one yogi in India. There have been so many yogis in India. One was called Tailanga Swami, because he came from Telangana during the British time. He lived in Varanasi. He would walk around the streets naked, and the British would lock him up. Not good to walk around naked. They'd lock him up in the prison, and then again they'd find him walking in the street. Because you can't lock up a yogi. He'd just locked up. Oh. And they go and open the cell, it's not there. Where is he? He's out in the street again. They lock him up again, and again he'd come out. So he can perform wonderful activities, but they don't please the heart and soul of the devotees as Krishna does. Krishna's wonderful activities, they're not some magic trick to impress anyone, but they're all, everything about Krishna, even more than Lord Narayana. They are simply for increasing the pleasure of his devotees. And in that Krishna himself takes pleasure. So these are some 4 extra qualities of Krishna, which Rupa Goswami has just summarized, and all these qualities could be elaborated upon unlimitedly. But he's just giving some idea. His whole work is about bhakti, pure devotion to Krishna, and why it is in our own best interest to be devotees of Krishna, how we can be devotees of Krishna. And then he goes on to describe Krishna and pure devotion to him. So please, I know you all have very busy lives, but when you get time, read Srila Prabhupada's books, and among them you can read this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion. In this month, there's some special emphasis in the ISKCON world on distributing sets of Srimad Bhagavatam, because in the Bhagavatam itself it's stated that if one gifts on Bhadra Purnima a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam placed on a golden throne and give it to a pure Brahmana, then what do you get? You get some kind of benefit. I can't remember what the benefit is exactly. So it's an excuse to get everyone fired up for distributing sets during the whole month of Bhadra. Although we don't give it on a golden throne, and we generally don't give it to pure brahmanas, because all the pure brahmanas initiated in ISKCON already have sets of Bhagavatam. I hope. But anyway, it's good to get everyone excited. We should be excited all the time, all the year, about distributing sets of Bhagavatam. I just got news that one devotee in Seattle, he was distributing Srila Prabhupada's books in Seattle, in the United States, on Janmashtami. And so many Hindus go there, of course, to visit the ISKCON temple in Seattle. And on that day, he distributed 50 sets of Bhagavatam. That means he convinced 50 people to buy on the spot sets of Bhagavatam. That's before Bhadra month. Yeah, but that was Mahotsaha. No, he's not doing it every day, but he does a lot of sets, no doubt. And the wonderful thing is that he, and not only he, but they're doing it not only, of course, if you go among the Hindus in America, it's especially at temple events, Guru Purnima, they go to, where do they go to in America? Sai Baba temples. Because you get a lot of Hindus going to Sai Baba temples on Guru Purnima. Hare Krishna. Anyway, it's a good opportunity to sell lots of books. Lots of Bhagavatam sets especially. But selling to Westerners, that's something else, because they have no idea Krishna, Bhagavatam, nothing. So that's the great challenge, but he's doing that, and others are also doing it. They go to all kind. Generally, they may do just on the street also, just approaching people on the street. Can you imagine? It's unimaginable. It's a Achintya Shakti. But they especially go to spiritual conventions. They have such things in America. All mixed up, wishy-washy, new age, this, that, and the other. But still they find people who... Then they go to tattoo conventions, which are extremely tamasic, but people like the pictures in the books, like Nrsimhadev, and they want to get a tattoo of that. So they're able to sell. And they go to furry conventions, which and people dress up as cats and bears, and somehow or other these people, they're quite good for buying Prabhupada's books, although they must be of subhuman proclivity, if not intelligence. And there are all kinds of things. That Japanese cartoon, what's it called? Anime. They have conventions of that in America. And that's also good for selling books. They have all kinds of conventions, gun conventions. I don't think they go there. I don't think they sell books there. Wine conventions. I don't think they bother trying to sell books there. You never know. They have all kinds. They were at one recently where it was they had a convention of psychotropic drugs used for paranormal experiences, something like that. That was quite good for selling books. Then they have Marijuana Day. That's always good for selling books. So America's a strange place. You might be surprised. It's really a wacko place. It's Joto Mot Toto Pot in action. So see what you can do to try to distribute books during this month. And afterwards, and throughout the year, but especially this month, there's a drive for distributing these books. Hare Krishna! Any question, comment or objection? Please say now. Don't generally get objections in talks like this. But there may be, you never know. Any demons here want to object to Krishna being the Supreme Personality of God? It may not be a demon, maybe someone from Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, like this. But Caitanya-caritamrta, this whole subject is discussed right in the beginning of Caitanya-caritamrta, how Krishna is the origin even of the Narayan forms, using evidence from Bhagavatam. But then he says, well, if you want to say Narayan's the origin, well, that's also not untrue, so okay. If you want to worship Narayana, we bow at your feet. We have no argument. Well, there may be. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also playfully argued with Venkata Bhatta in Sri Rangam. You can read all these things if you read Caitanya-caritamrta, which I strongly recommend. Hare Krishna. Anything? Question? Comment? We have here several devotees who don't follow English much. They're just here out of Bhakti. কিছু বুঝেছেন যা আমি বলছিলাম এখন একটু He understood ektu means Torah, just a little. Hare Krishna, Sri Krishna, Bhagavan ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam distribution ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.